But let's jump into the last topic, and we are going to welcome in one of the OG patrons, not the OG patron, but he's been a patron for about 5 or 6 months now. We're welcoming in Jake. Jake, you're back again on the Fast Break Podcast, and you brought one fantastic topic, but I do want to throw it to you before we introduce the topic, even though it's going to be titled on YouTube. I want to throw it to you because you said you had a good opening line for Ricky.
Oh, no. Let him go through his list first.
All right.
Then we'll bring it up.
So what Jake proposed was he wants to do a top 10 list of the current NBA players. Colin Cowherd did it, and it was absolutely trash. So Jake wanted to redo it. So all 4 of us do have a top 10 of the current NBA players now. Jake, we'll go to you first. Give us your top 10.
All right. Well, I got LeBron and Durant 1 and 2. Don't really think that's debatable. I think everybody has the same thing. And then I got Kawhi at number 3. My reasoning for that was he can put up 25 a game, and he's the only guy on the list that can guard 1 and 2 spots. And then I got Steph Curry at 4, greatest shooter of all time, not really debatable. Anthony Davis at 5, best big man in the league. He can really do it all. Probably going to finish 3rd in MVP voting, but maybe next year he'll get more recognition. And then James Harden at 6. He's going to be the MVP. Russell Westbrook at 7, Mr. Triple-Double 2 years in a row. Can't really argue with that. Giannis at 8. I originally didn't have him in my list, but after reconsideration with Sean yesterday, I may have been convinced. Kyrie at 9. But due to injury, he might have fallen down people's list, but I still believe. I think next year or the year after, he'll pass Russell and be the second best point guard in the league behind Steph. And then number 10, got the best center, Mr. Trust the Process, Joel Embiid.
I'm glad I broke down Jake because he was yelling at me that I had Giannis on my list at all and that over Joel Embiid, and then I was like, I'm throwing stats at Jake
and then
over
he
Twitter.
Also saw that maybe 2 other people also have Giannis on their top 10.
I'm at least glad Jake listened to reason here and put Giannis on his list. Ricky, we'll go to you. Who's your top 10?
Well, I'll kind of do the same thing Jake did. So number 1, number 2, non-debatable, LeBron, followed by Kevin Durant. Then to me, there's a second tier, 3, 4. It's either Steph and Anthony Davis. I'm going to put Steph above AD. Then at 5, Kawhi Leonard. Defensively is there. Also, should have probably went to an NBA Finals if you didn't get Zaza'd. So I've got Kawhi there right at 5.
It was 1 game.
I think they would have beat the Warriors maybe if he's in that series. Then I've got Kyrie Irving at 6, Klay Thompson at 7, Giannis at 8, James Harden at 9, and then Ben Simmons at 10. And here's where you can jumble everything up and it's not so cookie cutter.
Jake, what's the retort you had?
So can you explain to me how Ben Simmons is a better player than Russell Westbrook?
So here's exactly why. Like, it's not necessarily Ben Simmons over Russ, but for me...
No, that's exactly what it is.
It's exactly what it is.
I'll tell you why
Russ is 12.
No, I'll tell you why Russ isn't in my top 10 is because I really don't think he is to me, just a stat. I'm going to boost the stat sheets. Never going to win a title. Never going to be someone that you can build a team around. And I would take any of these top players over him if I'm building a team.
So you're going to build a team around Klay Thompson, who's a third.
If I absolutely had to, I would.
James Harden, who you're building a team around, who's currently beating the team with 3 of your guys in their top 10. James Harden is below Klay Thompson, who's a third.
I'm not saying that's the only parameter I used, but all 10 of these guys I would pick to build my team around before Russ.
So even though Russ has better stats than Ben Simmons and is 1 more,
because at the end of the day, I think Ben Simmons will win a title before Russ.
Jake, what do you want to say?
Can you explain to me how Ben Simmons is a better player than Joel Embiid?
Now, I had this conversation with Dave before because I saw you had Joe at 10. For me, I am always going to lean towards the ball handler, the guy who has the ball in his hands more time. I almost wanted to put Joe at 10, but I had to go Ben Simmons because it's a combination of where I think he's going to be, plus him being a ball handler and Joel not being the main ball handler.
Dave, before we get into a huge cat fight, take us through your top 10.
My top 10, hopefully less controversial. LeBron, KD 1, 2, Anthony Davis at 3, Steph Curry at 4, Kawhi at 5, James Harden at 6, Russell Westbrook 7, Giannis 8, Kyrie at 9, and Dame. I agonized over this 10th spot because it could be about 4 different people, but I landed on Dame.
Well, Dave even had J.J. Redick and T.J. McConnell in there just as a joke.
JJTK.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Dave did put in the T.J.J.J. mix-up down to 10.
Superhuman being.
My top 10 goes as LeBron James, and then a wide margin at 2 for Kevin Durant, 3 Anthony Davis, 4 James Harden, 5 Steph Curry, 6 Kawhi Leonard, 7 Giannis Antetokounmpo, 8 Russell Westbrook, 9 Damian Lillard, and 10 Kyrie Irving. One thing I do want to throw out there, and we'll get into the whole, Ben Simmons, the Dame, the Joel conversation. Obviously, clearly, 1-2, Kevin Durant, LeBron James.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that real quick. Ricky, I think you were making the argument a little bit in the season that it was closer than people thought, Kevin Durant versus LeBron James. Has the past season changed your mind that it's a wide margin between LeBron and KD?
I don't think of the margin between them. I think it depends on who you talk to. Like I said, for me, 1 through 4 is you've got the top 2, LeBron, KD. One's going to be number 1, one's going to be number 2. Most of the people are going to put LeBron above KD. Then that next one is Steph and AD. Okay, which one am I going to put above the other? That's how I kind of look at this top 4, but that's how it is with LeBron and KD. Of like, most people, LeBron above KD, but it's them at the top, and they are the only 2 that are going to get those top 2 spots.
Well, and I know Drizzy, a guy on Twitter, was consistently trying to prove to me that Kevin Durant was a better player than LeBron James. These playoffs have shown LeBron James is by far the best player in the NBA, and it's not even close in my mind. Jake, since you think you're going to be watching LeBron next year, since he's going to be coming to Philly, do you think it's a wide margin between LBJ and KD, or do you think it's close like Ricky's saying?
Not even close. It's not even like LeBron is the greatest player ever to play the game, and most talented. I'm not going to get into that, but he's the most talented elite player ever to play the game. And to see what he's doing, even with K-Love going down 3 minutes into the last game, and Kevin Durant struggling to beat the Rockets when he has 3 other All-Stars on his team, it's not even close.
Well, and Dave, one thing too, you look at below those 2 guys, LeBron James and KD. You look at that 3, 4, and 5. Yeah. I have James Harden in that 4, but mostly you guys have Steph Curry, AD, and Kawhi Leonard in that in a certain order. Not everyone has it. Steph, AD, Kawhi, but those 3 guys are in the 3, 4 spots for you, Ricky, and Jake. What sets those players apart from James Harden, who, like Jake said a little bit earlier, is going to be the MVP this year?
I think a lot of it comes down to just being the most consistent and best three-point shooter we've ever seen. I think Steph is just there's not really a great way to put it into.
He changed the game.
Yeah, he literally changed the game. It was like, oh, a three-point shot's cute. That's good. It's a nice thing to have. And then he's like, no, I can drill threes all day, and you have to cover me legitimately as soon as I walk over half court. But on top of that, it's also the ball movement, the offensive flowing through him, the constant passing. Like, he has great vision. He will make risky passes to get payoffs. And honestly, his team plays with him at a different level than most teams.
Well, the thing I was going to add to that is, like, for me, not only is he the best shooter, I'll be honest, Sean, seeing him at 5 on yours, I think that is criminally low. I think that he's like, you can put Anthony Davis above him because Anthony Davis is carrying that Pelican team, carried them to where they were this year when Boogie went down. But I just look at what Steph does, and like for me, when I look at AD and Curry, it's kind of like the Ben Joe thing I just said. I'm always going to go with the ball handler, and I'm going to go with the guy who's going to have the ball in his hands more times than the big, either down on the post or even on the outside.
Well, this is right now. So, I mean, I'm looking over the past 3 seasons. James Harden has been playing 82. He's played 82 games in 2 seasons, and this year he's gotten less of a workload because, again, he was getting worked like crazy the past 2 seasons. He only took 10 games off. You can't rely on Steph anymore. I mean, Steph right now is, 1, not the best player on his team, and 2, he's consistently injured. I mean, you can't trust his ankles anymore. Is he more talented when he's healthy than James Harden? Yes, but so far, James Harden has been more consistent than Steph Curry. He's been on the floor. He's been putting up 29 points per game over the past 3 seasons. He's been getting 10, 11 assists consistently per night. He's a great ball handler. He's a great distributor, and he's one of the most dynamic scorers, if not the most dynamic scorer in the league, because when he's driving to the bucket, he's going to get fouled. He's great at driving contact. He's great in the mid-range, and he's deadly from 3. I mean, he's a guy that shoots 10 threes a game and shoots 36% from downtown. I mean,
that's league average, pretty much, though.
But still, I mean, he's a guy that's going to be able to do everything on the floor. Yeah. He's not like Steph. No one's like Steph from deep. But still, being league average and being able to be better at Steph than at driving to the bucket and drawing contact and getting to the line. He's a better passer than Steph Curry is.
Is he a better passer than Steph Curry?
No.
Maybe.
I would say Steph's a better passer. The thing I was going to ask you, though, is how much does winning play into this with you? Because I put winning into this a little bit. And to me,
this is right now, who is the number 1 seed in the Western Conference?
No. But you got it. Like, for winning, it's not one of those things where you just look at, like, where I am right now.
Who's up in the series?
I have to take some of my past. And the thing that James Harden, maybe if James Harden wins a finals, all right, then that changes things for me. But, like, the thing, and I originally had James Harden right below Kyrie at 7 or at 6 and right above him. The thing I hate about James Harden is, and I know this might be an overreaction from the last game, you can't miss 11 threes, let CP3 win you the game, and then say, "Oh, you're one of the top 5 players in the league."
Let's say this: me having Steph at 5 because of his injuries is, I think, less criminally underrated than you having James Harden at 9. Yes, James Harden doesn't have an NBA Finals, but neither does Giannis. Neither does Anthony Davis. I mean, you have those two guys above him. I was going to say Klay, but Klay also is the 3rd best player on his team. James Harden is about to bring home an MVP. Jake, I want to go to you because this is something that you brought into me. You know, I mentioned to you that, again, I think Steph Curry is the more talented player, but again, James Harden has been more consistent. You land on the Steph Curry side. Are you with Ricky that it's more that I'm criminally underrating Steph Curry, putting him at 5?
I would say that Curry is a better player overall than Harden, and I can see why you put him lower because of the injuries, but not taking anything away from Harden, to have Harden at 9 on your list is just
Well, and one thing too, I mean, even let's look at defensively. I mean, Harden's better than Steph defensively. I mean, it's not crazy. None of these guys are, defensive player of the year levels. But I mean, Harden is significantly better than Steph Curry is. Steph Curry is a liability on defense. They try to hide him in that Warrior defense. Again, he's so dynamic offensively. But again, I think you look at what James Harden's done over the past 3 seasons. You got to stop sleeping on this guy. He's a top 4 player in the NBA. There's a reason why he's beating out LeBron. He's beating out AD. He's beating out Kevin Durant for the MVP this year. And he should have won it even last year. He was better than Russ last year. He was more efficient than he was.
And that's the thing.
He was more efficient. I mean, yes, Russ had the history of getting a triple-double, but James Harden was more efficient.
And in my rankings, whenever we talk about him, I'm never bringing up the MVP again because it doesn't, the MVP is not the best player. It's who's the flavor of the week. Last year was the triple-doubles. This year it's James Harden.
And James Harden did both. James Harden was in the flavor of the week last year, and he's in the flavor of the week this year, too, for the MVP voting.
Jake brought up Russ. It's Russ got averaged a triple-double last year, won the MVP. Oh, why isn't he in the discussion this year? He did the same thing.
Well, Jake,
and that's why it's I'm not going to use the MVP in this argument.
You have Russ at 7, and Ricky doesn't have Russ in there at all. I have Russ at 8. Dave has Russ at 7. Make the argument why Russ should be a top 10 player in the NBA.
He averaged a triple-double 2 years in a row. But I don't have to say anything else. I literally
think
comparing him to Ben Simmons, who's a rookie who froze in the playoffs and couldn't beat a team who had their best 2 players out, and you're still putting Russell Westbrook behind him, that just makes absolutely no sense.
And Russ lost to a rookie.
Okay. And?
I think that the way
I think it was more Russell Westbrook. It was more Russell Westbrook's supporting cast failing him. Melo looked like he should have retired 2 years ago.
As soon as Russ said to Ricky Rubio, "I'm going to shut this shit down," and Don Mitch is sitting there going, "I'm not going to touch that," and basically the Rook was acting like the veteran in that series. He lost to a rookie.
I'm not accusing that.
Well, hold on. Let's bring this in because one thing that Ricky said was that it's stat padding. Dave, how much is this stat padding of Russell Westbrook, and how much of it is its actual talent? Let's take away the personality. Let's take away the supporting cast. What happened in the playoffs? Because again, the playoffs don't fully determine who you are. It sets you apart, and that's why you're making the argument for Steph Curry being higher. That's why again, LeBron James is separating himself from Kevin Durant, even though Kevin Durant won 1 series last year over LeBron James. Dave, at least. How much is stat padding playing into this, or can Russ do this without even stat padding?
I mean, it really depends on what you're calling stat padding. Is it the fact that he's getting all the rebounds because their offensive system is just set up by getting their point guard the ball in his hands as soon as possible? Is that a bad thing in any situation? I don't think that's stat padding. I think that's that's having an offensive scheme where you actually get to have the ball in the right guy's hands off the bat. You're not waiting for handoffs. You're not waiting for anything that could be intercepted or picked up by somebody else. I think it's a smart play. I don't think it's stat padding. I think a lot of the time that you see stat padding is when he is digging for assists and he has open shots, he's not taking them because, let's be honest, he's usually got the green light. So when he's passing open shots to get that 9th, 10th assist, yeah, I'll give you that's a little stat padding.
Well, let's put one thing in. Again, looking at Russ, yes, the start of that Utah series was rough, but he also doesn't have the coaching like Utah did. Quinn Snyder, again, in my mind, is close to a top 5 coach, maybe even top 7 coach. He outcoached Billy Donovan, and that's very clear. And then also Russ, in the last 2 games of that series, he played 44 minutes in pretty much both of them. He shot 42% from the field. He shot 42% from 3. He grabbed 12.5 rebounds. He dished out 6 assists, and he scored 45 points. in both those games. So, I mean, he was taking over that game. And Carmelo Anthony was nowhere to be seen. They didn't have Andre Roberson. They didn't have, any other players to score buckets besides Russ and besides PG-13. And they, lost by 5 points in the last game to get knocked out by Utah. So, again, maybe that's more of a flavor of the week, Ricky, where, again, yes, he crumbled in the playoffs.
Well,
but
yeah,
again,
really.
He put up 45 points in the last 2 games.
And like I said, for me and my list, yes, this is top 10 players right now, but I'm also looking at what you have done to get to this. And for me, being a winner plays into it a little bit.
What has Ben Simmons done then?
Well,
if you're bringing up being a winner, if you're bringing up doing this, he crumbled in the playoffs and did nothing. We'll bring up Giannis soon, Jake.
And that's why, to me, I feel like the big majority of that is you gotta be a winner to me to be in the top 5. And all, except for maybe Anthony Davis, all of those guys have won championships. All of them except for AD.
Kawhi won.
Yeah, he won. He Finals MVP too. But I mean, for me, that's why 6 through 10. That's why I kind of mapped it out like I did. Okay, LeBron and Durant are here. Argue all you want for those two. Steph and AD are here. Argue all you want for those two. Kawhi's at 5. Everyone after that, 6 through 10. In my mind, you can have any order after that. And I think you can make a case for yours.
Ben Simmons at 6?
TJ McConnell?
Well, you could. I mean, what?
Could you?
Colin Cowherd had him at 6.
That's because he's a fucking moron.
Well,
I'm not
We're not
saying...
basing our
No,
real quick. We're not basing our ideas off a guy who gets his info fed from scouts.
No.
That guy doesn't watch basketball.
I'm just saying that there's some people that might have him at 6. I don't. I have him at 10. You don't even have him on your list.
No, because he's a rookie and didn't do shit this year besides get 10 points, 7 rebounds on a great team.
After 6, you can make a case for whatever order you personally feel. That's how I feel.
Well, Jake, we'll go to you just because you mentioned Giannis and you're talking about the winners, and again, you put Giannis in. What really overcame to put Giannis in there? Because again, he's 6'11", he's an athletic freak.
Yeah, I would just be more ignorant than I think I was anything else. He's a great player. I'll be honest, I haven't watched a ton of him because he plays in Milwaukee and he hasn't really had a great amount of success in the playoffs. But I was looking at some of his stats last night. He's just a freak. And if he was in a bigger market with a better coaching or even better teammates, because his best teammate right now is Chris Middleton and Jabari Parker, and Jabari can never play. Mm-hmm. I think he'll be a top 5 NBA player by the end of his career. But I just think he's just been inconsistent as of now. Not really him though. It's been his team and the coaching more.
Well, let's bring this up because Ricky keeps bringing up winning and how much this means to him. And again, you talked about the top 5. 4 of the 5 players. I mean, Anthony Davis transcends that because of his talent. But 4 of the 5 guys in your list did win NBA titles. Looking at Jake's again, the top 4 guys: LBJ, KD, Kawhi, Steph, all have won NBA titles as well. How much did winning play into this for you, Jake, or was this solely based off this season? What were you kind of using criteria-wise just to give the people who are listening what you really based your list upon?
I will say, I didn't really have to. LeBron and KD, they've won. They've kind of cemented their legacy. Mm-hmm. They're there. And then after that, I kind of just looked at almost pure talent because I think Kawhi is just so underrated because he got hurt this year. I think that's all it was. I think if you asked people this question a year ago, he's number 3 on basically everybody's list. Maybe you put Steph there. But I think he is the only guy in the league that can guard Kevin Durant and LeBron James. He is the only guy. That's why Zaza is, slid under him. But he's, I think, and then you can't really argue with Steph and his winning and all that. But I think winning does play a part if you want to be one of the top players in the NBA. But I think talent can overcome success. If that makes any sense.
Well, and Dave, there's only one NBA final every single year. And some of these guys, like Giannis, like Anthony Davis, they're still fairly young. Maybe James Harden, Russell Westbrook don't get that same leeway because they've been to finals before. Yeah. But you look at Giannis, you look at Anthony Davis, even Joe on Jake's list, and Dame. Again, well, not really Dame because Dame's been in the league for a while. But some of these guys really haven't had the opportunity to have teams around them, have cultures around them. So, again, I think some of this has to be talent as well. And that's why I do put a guy like Giannis at 7 because, again, you can't teach being 6'11" with the speed he has, with the size he has. And, yes, he doesn't, he can't shoot a jump shot, but he's so fluid out there. He's so unstoppable. He's, again, one of the best defenders in the league as well. It's tough to really put those guys, outside of your list. Why doesn't a Ben Simmons make it in, though? Because, you were struggling at that 10. Yeah. Ricky does have him in. Why isn't a Ben Simmons, who is dynamic, does bring all those same things?
Being a 6'11" point guard.
Yeah, outside of, the defensive aspect that Giannis does bring. Why wouldn't Ben Simmons make it into this list?
Actually pretty good defensively. To be fair,
well, I mean,
he was one of the best defenders in the league this year.
Well,
I'm just tossing out there. But no, and that's kind of the question is like why Giannis over Ben right now. I think Giannis, we've seen the growth of his career. Every year he's gotten better. Every year it looks like he can keep getting better, which is scary because there's obvious holes in his game as far as his shooting's concerned. I see him as someone who can vault himself up there into that elite company. I think he has the same crazy upside as Anthony Davis does. I'll be honest, I think he could be better than Anthony Davis. Like his body frame and his mobility, his ability to take over a game, and like the fact that it's like 3 steps for him to get to the hoop from mid-court on a fast break is disgusting. Like what he could do with a good supporting cast and a head coach, yeah, he would absolutely be able to jump up and leapfrog into that top 5. Ben Simmons, just haven't seen enough yet. Mm-hmm. Like I think he has legit potential to be up there. I see why Colin Cowherd like tossed him out there in the discussion. I think it's too early still. I know it was for ratings, but still, like, yeah, Ben Simmons could probably be here in like 3-4 years. No problem.
I mean, you put him in. So what'd you see from Ben?
For me, it's just exactly what Dave talked about. It's a 6'11" guy playing the point, and for me, it's yes, it could be a little bit of what I see down the line. But how many times are we going to compare a guy to Magic Johnson and then say, "Oh, but he's not top 10 worthy"? Like, I know that's us saying like what he's going to be, but if he's going to be that, it's not like I saw anything this season except for the, to quote Game of Zones, the Benny 1-point game that he had in the playoffs. But I mean, from what I've seen this year, he's going to be special. Why not just put him in right now? Because like everyone else, well, he will. He is going to earn it.
But we're talking about right now. We're talking about right now.
The guy that I'm honestly more confused that you guys haven't targeted is Klay Thompson on my list.
Well, I think that's ridiculous, but I think Ben Simmons is rougher. Because, like, I mean, Klay, again, he's a great three-point shooter. He's a great defender, and he's won. I'm looking at that Ben Simmons thing, and again, he hasn't done anything yet. He might not even win Rookie of the Year. He might not even be the best rookie.
He's going to be Rookie of the Year or Squire.
I'm saying he
and
might
I'm a Don
not
Mitch
be.
guy.
I'm just saying he might not be. It's true. He might not win. We don't know who's going to win the Rookie of the Year yet. So is it crazy to say that he might not win Rookie of the Year?
The guy putting up 16, 8, and 8 is not your Rookie of the Year.
It's not crazy.
A rookie that put up 20 points for Donovan Mitchell.
23 and 3 is not better than 16.
A guy who put Ben on the top 10 isn't even picking him for the Rookie of the Year. So, I mean, this guy might not even have the best rookie year out of all rookies, yet he's in the top 10.
Well,
I don't know.
Is he truly a rookie?
Yes.
That's
Oh, my God. Oh, my.
This is just like a triggered podcast.
Let's do one thing that might be a little bit fun.
Where's Lonzo at?
Jesus.
Like 100.
Who's the guy that just missed the list? Who's number 11? I'll go first, just because I'm throwing that out there and let you guys know this. So I'll go first. The guy that's just missed my list, it's DeMarcus Cousins. This guy's an absolute freak. The only reason why I didn't make it in is because of his injury, and I don't know what he's going to be like when he comes back. But if he's back, he's healthy. He's electric from 3 for his size. That guy is great at handling the ball at 6'10". He can put his back to the basket. He's fierce. He's a competitor. Him and AD was going to be absolutely scary next year, especially if they're able to keep Rajon Rondo around. If they're able to keep Rondo, DeMarcus Cousins, Nikola, AD, and Drew, it's going to be an absolute
it's a nightmare for
fireworks show out there. So DeMarcus Cousins, this guy is absolutely dynamic. A fierce competitor. This guy just missed my list. It's just wondering about where would he be with this injury that he has to deal with. Jake, I know you had Boogie on your list before you took him out. Would he be your number 11?
Yeah. So when I had him in the list originally, I was juggling between a couple of people. I was between Embiid, Towns, CP3, and then obviously now DeMarcus Cousins. I would say CP3 is the one that I kind of think he's just there, but he's not flashy enough. Like I would still take CP3 over Dame, but I just think, yeah, he's just right outside the list, and he is one of the best pure point guards of all time, but he just never got to the end.
Yeah, I mean, obviously
he's
we'll
the
wait and
best
see.
true point guard.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best true point guard, but again, I think, and Jake kind of hit the nail on the head, and that's why I went with Dame over CP3, is Dame hasn't had the help that CP3 has had, and also we've seen Dame, we've seen buzzer beaters from Dame before, we've seen him take over games scoring-wise before. Obviously, that didn't work in the playoffs this year, but I think that was more of a Stotts versus Alvin Gentry thing, more of a Dame thing, and I know CJ did perform still well in that playoff, but they were focusing in on shutting down Dame, and you look what Dame has done consistently over 23 points per game. He's one of the most dynamic scorers. And CP3, I love him. The guy's great. He's so consistent. I mean, he's been averaging 19 points since 2011, and he's still averaging 10 assists. But I think it does err on that flashy side. And also, we haven't seen CP3 take over and win a series before. Tried to do it in Game 5 for the Warriors and Rockets. Ended up pulling his hamstring, and now he's going to miss Game 6. So I think that's one thing that kind of put it out there. And also Towns. If I'm looking at Embiid and Towns, Dave and I had this argument before. Towns is electric offensively, but I mean, you look at what Embiid brings defensively. Cat can not even match that. So that's why I'd probably put Embiid over there. So I don't think it's crazy to put Embiid on the list if you do think, again, he's going to be healthy. But again, I crap so much on Joel Embiid not being healthy. I know he had a good year this year. It was healthy, but still, it's a worry that I have for him. Dave, who's number 11 on your list?
I struggled here. Since I struggled at 10, I struggled at 11, of course. No surprise there. I bounced between a couple guys. It was between Jimmy.
You wanted to make the case for Jimmy at 10.
I want Jimmy to be there, but Jokic is also, I think, deserving of a lot of respect right now. And then Victor Oladipo. Those three guys, I'm between the three of them. I think Jokic is probably the one that's most dynamic out of the three. Jimmy had the injury this year, and who knows how long his legs will hold out. Victor Oladipo, we saw the emergence of something special. He had a fantastic year, and he's incredibly dynamic, being the primary ball handler on the Indiana team. And then, but Jokic is just freaking point guard at center.
Jokic for me just hasn't done enough. I think that's the one thing for him.
That's the holdback.
Ricky, who was 11? I don't even know if I want to know.
For me, I'm going to say a tie. It's either between...
Campaign.
No, between...
CJ McConnell.
No. Let me say it. CP and Joe. So for me, it's either Embiid or CP. I mean, at first, I was kind of thinking a 10 of which Sixer am I going to put in? But I totally forgot to...
I think the Sixers have two of the top 12 players in the league.
I was about to say the same thing.
I don't think so.
And then CP in there, I'd probably have CP as the if de facto 11 if I had to pick. Because we're seeing, he didn't have any help in with the Clippers, but what we're seeing now is, hey, when I got a guy like James Harden, he can go 0-11, and I can help carry this team to victory.
Yeah, and one guy I want to throw out there too is PG-13. I mean, he's been super consistent. One of the best two-way players in the league. Is
he top 15?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he's top 15 for me at least. Yeah, maybe you guys.
Well, because
disagree,
you think about it, guys.
I mean,
I'll throw out and I'm not saying in any order. CP3, PG-13. If Russ isn't there for me, so Russ. Is there enough guys to put him in the next 5 after
you think
this list?
CP3 is better than Russ?
Wait, did you say Russ isn't 11? Yeah, but that's the same
No,
thing.
I said in mine he's out of the top 10.
Oh yeah,
he's out of the top 12.
But you said CP3 is 11.
I was just saying.
So he's out of the top 12.
No. I was just saying any order. This wasn't my.
I'm
order.
asking you a question though.
No, Russ is above PG.
No, is Russ better than CP3?
Oh no, CP3 is 11. I said.
And then Joe was 12.
All right,
so
Joe was
Russ
12.
is maybe
I'm going to leave here.
All right, Jake, any final thoughts?
Joel Embiid's better than Ben Simmons. If you don't think that, then I don't think so much basketball.
Will Ben jump him next year? If Ben develops a jumper, will he jump him?
Well, I mean, LeBron and Kawhi are going to help him with that. So, I mean, when we win the NBA title next year, it's going to be hard to deny.
Are they going to pick up Kyle Korver to be the shooting coach?
Yeah.
Nah, TJ and JJ's got that covered.
Nice.
Do you think though Ben can jump Joe next year, or do you think it's going to take a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say I think if he's in the discussion in his first year, and who knows, next year Embiid could be on a trampoline and hurt his knee again. I mean, who knows with this guy? So,
his own teammate took him out this year.
Yeah, or going down a water slide. We saw him having fun in Atlantis. Dave, any final thoughts?
Not really. I think that we nailed the list for the most part. I think the interesting one is who's going to rise the most next year for me. I put my money on Giannis. He's the scariest person. Yeah. We wanted to crown him early, and I get that because he's something special. But I think get him a head coach, get him this one offseason, see what they can do at a sporting cast.
Ben Simmons is going to be the one. You mentioned Giannis, it's going to be Ben. He's going to be a lot higher next year. And actually on your guys' list next year.
I think if I'm putting a player from this year's rookie class, I'm putting Don Mitch over Ben Simmons next year. Don Mitch
is going to be in the top 10 next year.
Tyreek Evans 2.0.
Tyreek Evans 2.0. He's 3 inches shorter.
Yeah,
no, but he means having the All-Star rookie year.
Rookie-wise.
Oh, okay. And then just good first year.
Fall off the pace.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this Patreon segment. The camera's dead, but Jake, we want to thank you not only for joining us and giving us a great list and having some great banter with us, but also for being a patron. You rock, and also if you guys want to be like Jake head over to patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. Also, don't forget to rate this 5 stars on iTunes. Also, don't forget to sub. We've been seeing massive growth, and we just want to see this thing keep growing. But for Dave Oster, for Ricky Widmer, I'm Sean Anderson. Also, for Jake, again, don't forget to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. That will do it, and we will see you next time.